Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. Even though we've returned from the Philippines, we had an awesome experience our last evening there. We want to show that to you. As you may know, we've been island hopping, starting in Manila and then jetting to Cebu, and then it was off to Bacolod, and our last stop was on the island of Mindanao, the city of Davao. It was here that we bumped into a great group of 20-somethings called Catholic Faith Defenders, with an emphasis on defenders as well as Catholic. And we'd like to take a moment here and give a huge shout out to some of the guys, Ryan, Ace, and Lafayette, how you doing? As well as our other comrades in the Philippines who fight for the right to life and the faith. That would be Eric, Lorna, Roger, and a whole bunch of other great Catholics in the Philippines. God bless you all. They are actually, the Catholic Faith Defenders, part of a larger group all over the Philippine Islands. And what do you suppose the Catholic Faith Defenders do? Yep, they defend the Catholic faith, but it's how they do it that rocks. Check it out. The night we were in the Davao Plaza, here they were duking it out over Protestant evangelicalism, Seventh-day Adventism, and Jehovah's Witnessesism, and a whole assortment of other related heresies. They stand in the park every Sunday night from 6 until 10 each week, like clockwork, and start preaching the Catholic faith and the truth that outside the church there is no salvation. And every week the crowds gather and grow. Of course, once the crowds gather, the Protestants show up and start challenging the defenders. And that's when the fun begins. The phrase, "step into my parlor," said the spider to the fly, springs immediately to mind. The questions start coming from the supporters of Protestantism, or should we say challenges, because it's difficult to classify them as questions. They're more like objections, disguised in question form. Actually, they're just there to raise objections. Nevertheless, the questions get dismantled in what an objective observer could only describe as a drubbing. Now, the goal is not to win the argument, but to win the crowd. The Protestants making the challenge clearly have no intention of engaging in honest dialogue. They just want to argue and try to shame the church. But the people standing around listening do want to hear and weigh up the propositions for themselves. And it is exactly here that the defenders do their most deadly work. Deadly in the sense of killing heresy. They get challenged and they answer the challenges in a most excellent way. One by one, they swat down every challenge to the faith. But most importantly, the people standing around see this happening, and they see the intellectual superiority of Catholicism as a proposition, which is a good place to start. You can easily imagine that this is exactly what it looked like back in the days of St. Paul, when he would start evangelizing in the town square and take on all challengers and establish one group of faithful Catholics after another in Corinth, Ephesus, Thessalonica, and so forth. Faith does, after all, according to St. Paul himself, come through hearing. And that means, quite obviously, that someone has to stand up and preach it. And brother, did they preach it. A few of the defenders are supporters of our efforts here at RealCatholicTV.com, not to mention the fans of the Vortex, and so they invited me to the microphone to say a few things. I considered it a splendid gift of grace to be able to join them in their efforts.
Every single person who believes in Jesus Christ should belong to the same church. They should believe the same things. They should worship the same way.
After a few comments, it wasn't long before the bombs started getting hurled my way, as they are regularly hurled at our brothers in arms every week in this plaza. A Seventh-day Adventist, for example, challenged that Sunday was the Lord's Day. See, they believe that it's actually Saturday. An evangelical confronted Catholic teaching on another matter, and a third fellow, get this, tried to say that Catholics are evil because we support and promote celibacy and fasting. When we responded that those practices are made perfect and given the fullness of their meaning in the celibacy and fasting of our blessed Lord, well, he didn't want to hear it. But the crowd did, and the crowd responded. There's a valuable lesson in all of this, and our blessed Lord himself makes the case perfectly when he talks about the farmer scattering the seed. Some falls on the rocks, some in thin soil, some on the path, but some does fall into rich soil, and it bears great harvest. We need to preach the faith to not only anyone who will listen, but even those who don't or won't, because somebody else will be listening. And this needs to become the mission, a cause célèbre for every single Catholic. We don't get to take a pass on this. A quote from Archbishop Fulton Sheen is instructive here. Quote, "A Catholic who does not strive to spread his faith is a parasite on the life of the Church." End quote. Reporting to you back from Detroit, but about the Philippines. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.